Thanks for joining me for this deep dive on navigating stairs. I'm going to cover a variety of topics concerning how we go about going up or down stairs. I'm going to talk mostly about walking, but also about running, because running up and down stairs is a really good exercise. A lot of people have trouble navigating stairs for a variety of reasons. Some people have safety concerns because of balance and fear of falling. Other people have pain concerns, especially pain in the knees going up or down stairs, and that can affect people of all ages. Some people get fatigued going up or down stairs, and some people just have problems keeping proper posture doing it. In addition to covering those specific problems, learning how to walk up and down stairs, paying attention to the details, can really be helpful for people in simply learning how to move their body or use their muscles and core properly. This can be beneficial for all of your activities of daily living. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to begin with walking upstairs and first talk about how we get onto that first step properly. Because as the old saying goes, garbage in, garbage out. If we have poor posture or technique, as we get onto the first step, that same poor posture and technique are going to carry through all the way up the stairs. So it's critical that we hit that first step in the correct manner. And I'm going to get into that right now. You may notice yourself or a lot of people walking upstairs and hitting that first step leaning forward like this, instead of having good vertical posture. It's important that we have good vertical posture at all times because that helps preserve the health of our spine and other joints by keeping them properly aligned. So let's look at hitting that first step. The first thing we do is take a normal stride, and it differs from walking on normal ground because we can't obviously take a normal stride and run into the step. But it begins in the same manner. We begin taking a normal stride, and as we hit this end point here, we're going to, instead of placing our heel, we're going to flex the hip of this forward leg, and that's going to bring us forward onto the step. It may seem simple because we do this without thinking, but there are some key points here that I want to make. When we first get onto a step, it's very difficult to have an exact position relative to our body and where the step is going to be. We might start very close to the step, a little bit further away, or even further away from the step. And how we use our body is going to determine how we can place properly on that step. If we place really close to the step, what we're doing after we place the heel is simply standing up. We're going to stand up and then flex the swing leg hip, and it's going to bring us forward and onto the stair. If we start a little bit further away from the stair, what we're going to do is shift the body a little bit forward, then stand up. And when we stand up in that manner, we travel a little bit further forward. We began that further travel forward here by shifting forward without lifting. Then we lift, and we've gotten a little bit further forward, then we flex the hip, and it brings us onto the step. And then if we step even further back from the stair, we're going to shift all the way forward, just like we would when we're walking on level ground, and we don't start the lifting process until the foot hits the flat position. Then we swing through like in normal walking, and then flex the swing leg hip, and it brings us up onto the step. Now, this may seem simple, but the way we walk on flat ground has to be correct in order for us to hit the stair correctly, because many people walk pitching forward like that instead of having a smooth vertical swing through that I talk about in most of my walking technique videos. When we walk on level ground, we should have this swing through that passes through this heel hover position before bringing the swing leg heel down. If instead we are lifting and crashing like that, that is going to carry on to the step, because we're going to end up doing this instead of maintaining the proper posture. It's a little bit easier to hide the poor technique when we're walking on level ground than when we hit the stairs. But that is the result. So when we're walking on level ground, we want to have the smooth vertical posture and the heel hover that I talk about in a lot of my videos. Then we're able to pass through this heel hover position, lift the swing leg, and place onto the step. I'm going to cover the heel hover with a little bit more detail because it's important for the way we walk upstairs, but also for how we walk on level ground. I want you to practice this as an exercise. We're going to begin first by placing one foot forward and our body weight all the way back on the rear leg. Forward leg is going to have the heel placed. And what I want you to do from this position is go straight from here and rise up to a standing position without flexing the forward knee. We're going to rise directly up from that position and practice that first without an explanation. I'm going to return, and we're going to do that, let's say 3 or 4 times. And see if you can get that smoothly and with vertical posture without leaning forward. This is a technique that I talk about in the walking code called lift. It causes us to lift up. It's also the same core movement that we use when we're standing still with both legs on the ground. And it's the same technique we use when we swing forward, or I would say lift ourselves forward when we're walking. But it's the same technique. From this position, lift yourself up, and then just square your feet down on the ground. When we do that movement, we're engaging our entire core, and we're engaging the entire core on one side of the body, the same side as the leg that is forward. When I talk about the entire core, I'm talking about our upper waist muscles, which are going to engage to move the upper body forward in that direction. We are talking about our lower abdominal muscles, which are going to tuck my pelvis under. I'm using my lower abs to tuck the pelvis, and then I'm using my hip flexors on this leg to pull the pelvis forward, all at the same time. I have my upper waist going forward, I have my lower waist or lower abs tucking, and I have my hip flexors then pulling forward, tilting the pelvis, and that brings me up to this vertical position. I'm trying to isolate each one of those muscles so you can see the effect. Upper waist, lower abs, hip flexors. When done all at the same time, it pulls the body up into a standing position without trying to push off the rear leg. So I don't need to push off that back leg to get up. I'm pulling myself up and forward. When we want to move a little bit further forward instead of just rising to a stand, what we're going to do is shift the body forward before we lift. What's the difference between that and the lift? The difference is in the hip power. When I lifted, I used the hip flexors on this side, the forward leg side, to help pull the body up. When I want to shift forward first, and in the walking code, this is the core technique I call set. We're going to power the movement initially from the rear leg hip, pulling forward. So I'm going to flex my rear leg hip, but also use the upper waist on the side of the forward leg and the lower waist on the side of the forward leg. So this action is the same as before, the tuck is the same as before, but I'm using the pull from the hip from the rear leg. This is going to cause me to shift forward without rising. So practice that motion, again, without pushing from the glutes. We're going to shift forward in a very smooth and fluid fashion until your front foot hits the flat position. Practice that 3 or 4 times. The motion should end when your knee gets over your ankle. The key to doing this correctly is avoiding using your glutes to push and also engaging all parts of the core, the upper waist, the lower abs, and the hip to pull us forward. Shift forward and then lift forward. Once we get there, then we're going to get onto the step, as I said before, by flexing the swing leg hip instead of the standing leg hip. Now that I've explained a little bit more, I'm going to do the same exercise I did in the beginning, starting with my foot very close to the step, and we're going to stand up. I now have power coming from my standing leg hip. This hip has just pulled me forward, and then now I'm going to flex the swing leg hip, and that's going to bring the body forward and up onto the step. From a little bit further away, I'm going to want to shift a little bit forward, but not all the way to the flat foot. I can begin the lift technique anywhere from this point all the way to this point. The further forward I go, the further forward my lift is going to be. So if I want to go just a little bit forward, I'm going to shift just a little bit forward before engaging the lift. It's going to take me into a slight swing through before I flex the hip and place on the step. And then finally, if I'm further away from the step, I'm going to do a full shift forward, then lift, and then flex the hip to stand up on the stair. Of course, we don't want to be too far away from the step, because if we're too far away from the step, then it's going to be very awkward to get onto the stair. But at a certain point, if you're this far away, you just take another step and you step up with the other foot. Of course, this becomes very natural as we move in our daily lives, and I'm not expecting you to think about this every time you walk up the stairs, but it's important to practice exercises, drill it until you can get onto the step properly without any effort. And then you should just be able to do it without any thought whatsoever. Now that we've placed the first foot on the step, it's time to get our whole body moving forward and up onto the step. And that is another place where people can have problems, because here it gets a little bit tricky. Because after we place the foot onto the step, we need to get our spine lined up over the correct leg, the leg that's on the stair. That's going to help our knee be lined up with the foot and the ankle, rather than the knee being inward here, where we're going to be going up without proper alignment, and that's going to strain the kneecap. So we've placed the heel on the step, and at this point, we need to start pushing from our rear leg glute. So this is my left leg glute. It's going to start pushing, and then I also have to engage the core waist muscles, upper and lower. When we placed onto the step, we were engaging the upper waist on the side of the standing leg, on the ground here, moving forward, and we were engaging the lower abs on that side also. So all on my left side as I place on the stair. When we do the next subtle movement to get onto the step, what we're going to do is keep this upper waist muscle going the same way, and we're going to begin pushing from the glutes on the rear leg, or the leg on the bottom of the stair, and at the same time we're going to engage the lower abs on the side of the foot that's on the stair. So think about engaging the lower abs as tucking the pelvis under. As I begin to push, I'm going to tuck the pelvis under on the right side. That is going to begin to root my body to the step. Not only does that lower ab engagement tuck the pelvis, it also rotates the pelvis towards the leg that's going to be on the stair. So my right lower abs are tucking the pelvis on the right and rotating the pelvis and bringing the spine towards the right. So the spine goes from being tied to the rear leg to now being tied to the forward leg. That shifts the spine over and shifts the center of weight over, so my knee is now lined up over the ankle. So I'm placing the foot, and then I'm pushing and rotating the upper and lower core all towards this leg. That's gonna gear me up to be able to push up properly. Now you'll notice that I am pushing and rising as I go forward and do that, but I'm not pushing off of this hip. I'm pushing off of the rear hip. That's where we're getting the energy from this motion, the rear hip. So practice that. I'm using my arm again to help the feeling of the upper waist engagement as I push onto the step. Once I'm rooted onto the stair, now I'm going to shift the upper waist rotation to the other side, and that's going to start the body rising up further. Once I get to this position with my foot flat on the ground and the weight rooted on the right leg, I'm going to change the rotation of the upper waist, and that's going to begin bringing me forward and up so I can finish climbing the stair. Let's look at that from the side view. We've lifted forward, placed on the step. I push from the rear leg, engaging the upper and lower waist to get the foot rooted. Now I'm going to shift the weight forward on the side of the standing leg on the step by rotating the upper waist from left side forward to right side forward. As I do that, you're going to notice the body continue to travel forward and up. But at the same time, remember, I'm pushing off the rear leg. So this is the rotation of the upper waist, bringing me from here to here. So practice that as an exercise, like this little sawing action here. Left side forward, right side forward. The whole time we're pushing off the rear leg glutes. Only after we get to this position are we ready to then push up using the glutes on the side of the leg that's on the stair. So after I've shifted forward and up, I change the glute action from left to right. Now I'm able to push up, maintaining a vertical posture. When people are bending over at the waist, or even when people are teaching people to bend over at the waist to go up, it's because they're not doing this action to get the body into the proper position. They're simply placing the foot and then trying to figure out how to push off this leg. And so they have to lean over to get the body weight far enough forward to push up. When we do it with rotation, we're going to be able to do it with proper posture and better alignment of the joints. Once I get to this position, now I need to place the foot onto the next step. Now you might notice these are wider steps than normal because I'm in Balboa Park here. These aren't normal staircase steps. So the width of the step makes a lot of difference. And it actually works for this part of the exercise because I'm going to be able to place the foot onto the higher stair using the same technique that I did just going onto the bottom step. It's going to move the body forward and up at the same time. So I've risen up to this position, and then now I'm going to flex the swing leg hip, and it's going to bring me forward and up. Then I'm going to resume the same action that I did before, pushing onto the step with the rear leg, rotating the upper waist to bring me forward and up, and then pushing off with the hip of the standing leg. Lift the other foot onto the step, push to root, rotate to go forward and up, and then push up. Once I've pushed up to the standing position, I've just used my glutes on the right leg. Now I'm going to use the hip flexors to pull forward into the normal step. That pull forward is the same lift that I talked about at the bottom of the step before we began placing the first foot onto the step. Now we have a step here that's more normal width. And I'm going to use the same technique to get onto the step that we used before. And I'm going to push myself up. But here what you're going to find, if you simply flex the swing leg hip to try to place the foot, you're going to run into the step with the front of your foot. We need a different technique when we're going to go upstairs that are normal width. That's going to bring us straight up without the body shifting forward like we did before. Because just like when we're on the ground, when we lift the swing leg hip, it brings us forward and up. When we're on the stairs, we need to go straight up. So we're going to place, shift forward, push up, and then now I need to use the lower abs here on the left side to tuck the pelvis under. That's going to bring the flat of the foot onto the stair. So I'm not actually flexing the swing leg hip like this. I'm simply using the lower abs to tuck under, while at the same time I'm still pushing from the glutes on the standing leg. So I just pushed up with the glutes on the right, and I'm going to use my lower abs on the left, almost turning the belly button towards the left, and that's going to tilt the pelvis up and place the flat of the foot on the stair. I still have my glutes activated on the right hip right now, so I'm in the same position I was when I first shifted my weight onto the bottom step. My upper and lower waist are turning towards the leg on the upper stair while I'm pushing off with the glutes on the right leg. At this point, I only need to rotate the waist in the opposite direction to begin moving forward and up. And that's why it should feel effortless when you're going upstairs. It shouldn't feel like you're having to push so much, because a lot of the motion is coming from rotation. When I get to here, I've already pushed. I just need to rotate to get me into the next position. Now I push up from this leg and then rotate the lower abs to place. Rotate to go forward and up, and then push up from the forward leg hip. Once I'm here, I can step forward by flexing the forward leg hip, and it causes me to walk straight forward. If you made it this far in the video, thanks so much for watching. Drop me a comment and let me know what you think. I'm Dr. Todd Martin, creator of the Walking Code. I'm going to be back in the next set in this series where I'm going to talk about walking downstairs with proper posture and technique. Have a great day.